Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Inspirage's Unscripted video. I believe this is number 5 in our series for our logistics practice. My name is Ty McCrossan. I'm a sales director here representing our logistics practice, which supports OTM, GTM, and WMS. So our topic today is our application managed services that we provide here at Inspirage. And my guest today is Girish Moorthy. Girish is a Senior Practice Director here. And Girish, thanks for joining.
You're welcome, Ty. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so Girish, before we have a few questions for you. Nothing too difficult for you.
Sure.
But can you share your background with us here at Inspirage?
Yeah, thanks, Ty. So, I go back a long time. I started out my career developing software applications. These were manufacturing applications. These were the days even before I came to Oracle, when Oracle didn't have products at the time, right? And I did that for a few years, and then I came over to Oracle and started implementing them. So I spent about 16 years at Oracle, where we did pretty much everything from functional consulting, project management, practice management, portfolio management, and did it all. And then about 9 years ago, I came over to Inspirage. So I joined the company when it was smaller than where we are today, and I've been part of this tremendous story, and done a number of different projects, implementation both for on-premise accounts as well as cloud. And then about 2.5 years ago, I came to the managed services practice of AMS, and I head up the North American portion of this part of Inspirage, and I'm here today.
That's great. Yeah, I didn't know your background, so that's great. I was at Oracle for 15 plus years as well, so we never did cross paths, but we both did our duty there.
Yes.
All right. So, Girish, we got some questions for you to learn more about application managed services. So let me start with what do you think are the major concerns of OTM customers today, after they've implemented, after they've gone live? What do you think some of the concerns they might have?
That's a very good question, and this is sort of one of my favorite topics. I could go on and on, but what I like to do is just, we don't have a lot of time, to stick to the most important ones. What keeps them up at night, right?
Right.
So the first thing is that there is the so-called knowledge gap. I like to call it a knowledge chasm, between what our implementers and our consultants bring to the table versus their usually smaller IT organizations, right? So they're really nervous, when we leave. What do? There's another technology they have to master, and they've already got their hands full supporting their current applications. So that's a big problem. The next thing, and this is part of the cloud, is, as you've seen, there's the quarterly upgrade. Okay, it comes like clockwork. Before you know it, you've got the next release. You've got to regression test it in a period of 2 weeks. Make sure entire business flows work. Everything is perfect, and then you go live, right? So, how do we do that, right? And then you've got the aspect of change, People come, people go. In fact, that is one of the sort of constant changes in business. So when that happens, you have to constantly retrain your folks, because people don't exactly know what to do if they make mistakes. Mistakes are costly, and that costs their own business a certain credibility. So then there's the reporting. So, Oracle has done an excellent job, and they have a lot of tools that make reporting easier and make it more let the business take ownership of these tools. However, you'll find that practically every implementation that I've seen is that IT will end up getting a large request for reports. So the backlog of reports is there. And then, this backlog is sort of overwhelming, and they just can't keep up, right? So that's another area where we help them. And then, of course, there is the master data. And this data changes. I'll give you an example specific to logistics, which is the rates. The rates are negotiated, and then they change. And when these rate tables change, and the rates can be pretty complex. So somebody's got to take these new changes, put them in, do all the testing and so on. So that's kind of what we do. We are good at
Right.
it. So these are some of the things that really where I feel that the customers have to deal with, and that concerns them.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you. That kind of leads into this next question. What are the pros and cons of a customer electing to support the application in-house?
This is, yes, I'll say, Ty, this is a very important one, and I'd like to approach it a couple of different ways. Firstly, I'll talk about the advantages. From a psychological point of view, there are elements of pride, ownership, and control. One feels that if one can manage it within the organization, it gives one a sense of independence and a sense of controlling one's own destiny.
Right.
So when you kind of farm it out, you feel, you're losing that. Okay. There is no external reliance on a third party. And, that's all in the head, right? It's
Right.
If you actually go back to the old days, what did people do? And and as you know, I've been around the block a couple of times where people, they bought the hardware and then they wrote all the software. They had armies of programmers developing applications that did exactly what they want. And then they went over to the packaged applications, both SAP and Oracle, started growing and this started becoming, ubiquitous, right? So
Right.
this is everywhere. But then still, there was one fundamental difference. In those days, even the hardware was still owned by the client. They would have to buy the servers and maintain the networks and databases and so on. And then when you have the transition to the cloud, which you've all seen, even that has gone away. The CIO does not have to worry about maintaining DBAs and networks and this and that. It's all out on the cloud. So if you look at this continuum, I see managed services as a part of this continuum. So this piece of do I support my own applications, that also starts to getting outsourced. And here I'll also say one other thing is its cost, right? So people feel that, okay, if I do it, it's cheaper. I've got my folks on staff. But I think that there are some hidden costs there that are not always seen.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual advantages are illusory, okay? The total cost of ownership may actually be more if you try to do it yourself.
Right.
There's one thing if, I go back to my sort of management school days. Michael Porter, the famous management guru, he used to tell companies, stick to your knitting.
Mm.
Now, what Mr. Porter meant by stick to your knitting was, he says, if companies have a competitive advantage in A, they should stick to A. A hardware company should not try to become a software company, and so on, right? But if I take that analogy further and I bring it to our business,
Mm-hmm.
companies are good at, let's say, Kellogg's is good at, making cereal, right? But, the transportation, the logistics of that, the IT concerning that, leave it to us, right? We are the guys, right? We sort of do it, we eat, breathe,
Right.
and sleep OTM.
Right.
Turn that over to us. We'll take care of it. The latest releases keep coming. We are around with them. They don't have to worry about it. So these are things that we can do. We can achieve economies of scale. We can do it efficiently. Leave it to us.
So for those folks that are watching this, a lot of them will say, I thought Inspirage only implemented software, right? And of course, we only implement Oracle. And, personally, we implement OTM, GTM, WMS well here at our practice. So a lot of folks might find our managed services new to them. So can you share our capabilities here at Inspirage?
Yes, I'll be glad to do that. You're absolutely right. People think that we are mainly an implementation company. But I'll give you a little bit of the history because I've spent almost a decade here at Inspirage. Even, Inspirage started 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the early days, we had a program for our value chain customers, and we called it EPO. And EPO stood for Extended Planning Organization, which means, after they went live, we didn't just abandon them. They could sign up with us for assistance with their ongoing operations and so on, and many took advantage of this. So from, what I call our humble beginnings, we sort of rebranded this service. We now call it AMS, Application Managed Services, and we've grown it. Okay, we have about 100 consultants in our offshore centers, and all they do is they're dedicated to AMS. They are not part of any implementations.
Right.
So we have, we have the scale, we're growing. And then the other thing that these guys do is we put a lot of emphasis around process, certification, and repeatability, knowledge base. So this is where we made major investments in these, where we want to make sure that we're able to do it efficiently, do it well, and get repeat business from the customers. And by the way, it's not, I mean, today we're talking about logistics, but we also support,
Right.
cloud ERP, legacy, we have,
Oh,
and all the
absolutely.
other
Yeah.
edge
Yeah. You
applications.
guys do it all. Yeah.
One of the things I just want to add is that we also have, I talked about the quarterly regression testing,
Hmm.
but we've developed some intellectual property around the automated testing of this. So the automated testing does two things. First of all, uh, the element of repeatability and human error. So when the program runs it, the program runs it, right? So they're not people don't make mistakes. So it's predictable, it's reliable, and second thing is its speed. You know, I don't care how fast you are, but you a human being cannot compete with a computer in terms of running 500 scripts, if you will,
Right.
when you have only a little bit of time to do it. So I think with these things, what we're able to do is we're able to focus the quarterly testing on just resolution of issues rather than spend a lot of unproductive time just repeating things. So these are some of the competitive advantages.
So you might have answered this already, but I had written down. I mean, so why should someone consider Inspirage for these services? You've covered a lot there, but
Okay,
anything else you want to
right.
share?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's one thing which I did say, and now we're talking about logistics. So if you look at Inspirage, we have uh, a large and vast and varied experience in logistics. Many of our employees have come from Glog, and
Mhm.
Glog was the company that Oracle acquired because their transportation management solution was better than what Oracle had at the time. Oracle recognized it, Oracle went after it, Oracle bought Glog, right? So we have people who have done countless logistics implementations. We have the experts. We wrote the book. We're confident that this is a field where we're very strong. Now, to be fair, the guys who are who did these are very very senior architects. They're not necessarily answering the phone, but they're just a phone call or an instant message away. So they're on tap. So sometimes the customer has a problem, and our guys don't know it. We can
Right.
get the answers fairly quickly. And one other thing is, in addition to this, we know it best because, especially if we've implemented it, we know the solutions, so we know all the intricacies and so on, and we can support them better. Okay? And you don't have to believe me. This is just because I'm saying it. As you know, Ty, the Gartner Group does these independent, unbiased studies, and we often find ourselves, in the magic
Right.
quadrant. So we are thought leaders, and we continue to do this. So we have experience in varied industries. If you look at industrial manufacturing, life
Hmm.
sciences, consumer packaged goods, and so on.
That's great you brought up GLog. So I'm GLog alumni. I over my shoulder I got my GLog truck. So very very proud of that. So Girish, let's go global, right? What about those customers that have locations in different time zones? They need 24/7. Can we support them?
Yes, absolutely, Ty. So one of the things that we did when we organized our managed services group as we got into a certain critical mass, right? So we started establishing pods because, as you know, Inspirage supports companies not just in the USA. They have companies who have operations in Europe, or
Hmm.
they even companies who are established in Europe, Middle East, Asia Pac. So we start with with the Asia Pac. So there is a pod that handles the Asia Pacific customers, so they're aligned to that time zone.
Okay.
Then you have the second pod, and this pod is these guys wake up a little bit later in the day, and they support both Europe, Middle East, Africa, right? So when you get to the EMEA segment, you can think of it as the sort of second shift, and then last but not least, when you have North America and Canada, so we have a pod dedicated to the customers on in the Atlantic, right? So this way, given that we're able to have these pods, we're able to take care of all of these things. In terms of service level agreements, every AMS contract, the customer insists on these service level agreements. So we take them very seriously. And what we like to do is, if they have a severity 1 issue, it's all hands on deck. We hold their hands side by side and work
Right.
with them to actually till the problem is resolved. So we're really proud of that, and we do it. I'd say we walk the walk, right? One other thing I'd like to point out is that in terms of the we talked about continuous innovation and digital transformation and so these things. So we also have developed some IP
Yeah.
around the natural language
Right.
processing, and we do it using a chatbot, right? So for instance, you could pose a question in plain English, how many units of product A did I ship to customer B last month, right? So this then gets translated into SQL query, and we go and we get the answer, right? So I'll sort of digress a little bit. In the old days, the Greeks, when they had a question, a difficult question, they would go to the oracle and ask the question, and the oracle is supposed to get the answer, right? So this way, if you look at Larry Ellison's vision, it comes to the oracle. You come 360 degrees full circle. You go to the INSEA oracle, ask the question.
That's great. Yeah. Well, that leads into, I got one last question. How does Inspirage help the customer learn the Oracle product better?
Yeah, so I did touch
Right.
upon this a little bit just now in terms of this particular example. But the other thing that we do, which I'll mention, is in our digital transformation practice. So we have learning, and we've created a lot of learning management tools. We can do classes for them, and we have done that. And sometimes we'll write into our managed service contracts. We'll set aside some hours to teach them, because when people leave and people come, so we are able to do that. So we have conducted sessions, both
Right.
for IT and for the users, to help them to learn on the job. One other thing we'll do, since you brought this up, is when these new releases come out, Oracle will usually give you a lot of the new material,
Right.
information, etc. So we're able to take it, digest it, and put it into presentations, simplify it, and tailor it to the user depending on which features would help them.
I've numerous customers thank us for that. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Well, Girish, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And for those watching, if you want to learn more, reach out to myself and Girish, and we'd love to hop on a call and support as we can. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.